All right. There we go. Can everybody see my screen? Give me a thumbs up if you can see a big welcome sign. Excellent. All righty, well, welcome to tonight's session. I want to kind of talk about a few quick things before we get started. So tonight is our opportunity to talk briefly about the upcoming school year and specifically for our 9th and 10th grade families. So again, welcome to our meeting tonight. Like I said, this session is going to be recorded and we'll be posting that on our website, and the PowerPoint link will also be sent out to families later this evening. We do ask that folks stay muted, and so we have limited your ability to unmute yourself just to prevent any background noise or chatter or distractions from other folks as they're participating this evening. And there will be a question and answer portion of this session. We're going to reserve that to the end. So we ask that you reserve those questions until the end of the session, and we'll make sure to get to those. I do want to thank those of you who had a chance to complete the survey and share those questions. We had a chance to review a lot of those, and I think a lot of those questions are going to be answered tonight. But feel free to stick around for that Q&A portion, and we'll make sure to talk about those. So, as I said before, my name's Ethan Williams. I'm the proud principal here at Clairemont High School. I have been a professional educator for the past 15 years, almost all of which have been right here in San Diego Unified. In fact, education has always been a big part of who I am and a big part of who my family is. My younger sister is a middle school math teacher up in Orange County. My brother, for a long time, worked as a high school history teacher. Actually now is a school resource officer at a high school in Arizona. And fun fact about Mr. Williams in terms of trivia, my kindergarten teacher was actually my mother, who then became my 6th grade history teacher. So for those of you who were ever a middle school boy, you can imagine what it would be like to have your mother be your teacher. Tons of fun, great experience. I'll leave it at that in case my mom is on this Zoom meeting. So education has just been a part of who I am and my family for a very long time. It's been something that we're passionate about as a family and me as an individual. I started my career in education as a special education teacher, and during that time I worked for some truly amazing principals, one of which works now at our central office in San Diego Unified. And I really had the opportunity to experience firsthand the power of transformational leadership. And to be quite honest, it was the example that she had set that made me hesitant at first to ever admit to myself that I wanted to be an administrator. Ultimately fast forward almost 8 years and I worked my way up in the organization and was working as a high school maths resource teacher, which afforded me the opportunity to look at a number of different high schools in our district. So I'd worked at Crawford, I'd worked at Lincoln, I'd worked with staff at Scripps Ranch and at Patrick Henry and a variety of other places. And ultimately it was the opportunity that I had when I met the staff at Clairemont and then Principal Dr. Jennifer Roberson and heard about some of the things that were happening in terms of their linked learning academies and just the forward thinking that they had with education and the experiences they were providing for students, that I was just completely blown away. And so when the opportunity to apply for a position as a vice principal made itself available, I jumped at the chance and fortunately was lucky enough to get that position. And so then fast forward again, another 4 years, here we are now. I'm starting my 2nd year as the principal of Clairemont High School. So that's right, last year, all of the pandemic and craziness was my 1st year. It is a year that I will not forget for a number of reasons, but it was a great experience and it just fueled my passion for doing this work with this amazing team and with you amazing parents, and getting to spend time each and every day with your kids is such a blessing. So. And I know this year is not going to start the way many of us would have liked, but a really wise friend of mine reminded me that the grass is always greener where you water it. So regardless of what's thrown our way, the staff at Clairemont High School couldn't be more excited to begin this year and get back on track supporting you and your kids growing and learning together. A bit about myself really quickly. I'm happily married to my wife, Randa. In fact, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary this summer. So yay, we made it, we did it. We got a chance to get away for a little bit until the place that we were staying closed down to COVID. So that is another memory that we will remember together. But actually my wife really is the unsung hero right now because she is keeping our 5 children quiet somewhere in the house, which this never ever happens. But yes, I have 5 children. Payson, who is our oldest, is 8 years old. Decker is 6. Cole is 5. Brooks is 3. And our little baby girl, Harper, is 1. So you can imagine how loud it normally is around the Williams house. And so I appreciate my wife very much. If you can hear me, honey, awesome job. So when I'm not up to my neck in Zoom meetings, I really enjoy spending time with my family, coaching my children in Little League, playing the piano, reading, and working in the yard. But all in all, you didn't come here to hear about me. You wanted to hear about the school year, so let's get to it. So I have an amazing group of educators and administrators that I work with, and so much of the work that we're doing behind the scenes is a result of the amazing team I get to spend time with. So before we get started, I did want to let them introduce themselves really quickly and take a brief moment so that you can get to know the other men and women who are working with your students.
Hi folks, my name is Sarah Thomas and I am one of the vice principals here at Clairemont High School. This is I think the beginning of my 3rd year here at Clairemont High School. I've lost count at this point, but it's about my 15th year in the district, and I was blessed to be brought up in the district as a special education teacher, working mainly with students that had emotional and behavioral disorders. I absolutely love what I do, and I'm so thrilled to work in a school that is so passionate about our students and the connections we make with kids and the connection that we try and give these kids the opportunity to make to their future. And their possible adult life. So I'm very excited to be here. I am married to my husband that I went to middle school and high school with. No, we were not together that long. We just celebrated our 6th year of marriage, and I have one beautiful 4-year-old son who is very patiently awaiting to come and say hi to you, but he's being very good. And we have a brand new puppy, is a beagle named Copper after the movie Fox and the Hound. So that's a little bit about me.
Hi guys, I'm Lucia Master-Dimas. I'm Sarah's counterpart. I'm also vice principal at Clairemont High School. I, along with Ethan, was my first year as vice principal when it was Ethan's first year as principal. I also recently moved to San Diego, so about 4.5 months prior to the shutdown. So that has been interesting, being a new resident in a new city. In a time like this, but luckily I have an amazing chieftain family that welcomed me with open arms via Zoom, of course, and 6 feet apart and more. But I come from Chicago. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, and I spent 20 years in the suburban Chicago public school system there as a career and tech ed teacher. I was a business ed teacher, a department chair, and a couple different roles as an assistant principal, as well as a coach for dance and some other odds and ends of things like that with clubs. So I'm very happy to be in San Diego, and I can think of worse places to be quarantined, and I'm very happy to be at Clairemont High.
Hi everyone, my name's Liz Resch. I'm the Clairemont High School Academy Coordinator. So glad you're all able to join us tonight. I've actually been at Clairemont since 2001. I started my career there teaching English. I absolutely loved it. I found myself loving the students and the staff at Clairemont. I also was very passionate about career technical education, and I helped start the Business Academy at Clairemont, which eventually kind of took us down the road of going wall to wall with academy pathways. And so that is my passion. I too am married. I have 2 awesome kids, one 4-year-old named Vincent, and the other one is 2 named Clara. They keep me very busy, especially during this time. And luckily, I also have a wonderful husband who is watching them and keeping them quiet somehow right now. My role at Clairemont is helping to oversee our academy work, some of the projects that we do, and then also working a lot with our volunteer community. And been a chieftain a long time, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Hi everybody, I'm Claudia Victorino. I'm the head counselor. This will be my 6th year at Clairemont. I've been in education for over 20 years. I started as an elementary teacher. I moved up to become a middle school teacher, and I did a part-time middle school counseling assignment. And now I'm a high school counselor. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I love working with teenagers and just help them be successful. So I look forward to working with all of you.
Excellent. So thanks so much for sharing, you guys. So I really wanted to begin tonight with a question that I know is on everyone's mind. And this was one of the questions that came up most frequently in the survey that we sent out. And that question is, when are we going to return to in-person learning? You know, as the principal of Clairemont High School, my top priority is the safety of my students and staff. And I recognize that within our community, we have families who feel very differently about a return to in-person learning. And each of those families and each of those students, I want to honor and recognize the fact that we all experience this differently, right? I appreciate everyone's willingness to have honest dialogue and assume goodwill and be tough on the problem, but easy on people. And I don't ever want to minimize the way in which this pandemic is impacting individuals and families within our community. So I'm going to continue to do everything I can to provide students and families with options, while at the same time leaning on the leadership of the medical professionals and our district leadership to help determine when it is safe to reopen our schools. And what I will say is, while I don't have all the answers, what I do know at this point in time is that San Diego Unified and the San Diego Education Association, which is our teachers union, have enlisted the support of a number of medical experts and professionals at UC San Diego to assist in the development of a plan that will guide our efforts in bringing students and staff safely back to in-person learning on our campuses when it is determined safe to do so. So the panel of experts actually met with district leadership and the members of SDEA recently to present a 59-page report containing their recommendations for school reopening, for disease mitigation, and possible school closures if that were to be needed. But district leadership is currently taking the direction from this report and continuing to design plans for reopening school sites. And Clairemont will continue to follow the directives from our district and our health professionals, and will provide parents with information as soon as we receive it. So as far as the next question I wanted to dive into was, how will our students feel connected? I think this was another question that came up frequently, and to be quite honest, like I said, as a father myself, Cole, who's our 5-year-old, is going to be starting kindergarten this fall. And kindergarten is such a social time with kids feeling connected and meeting their teachers and experiencing school for the first time, that's a concern that I have. And so I share in that concern with you as parents. But one of the things that I know about Clairemont High School is that as we think about the way that we do things at Clairemont, last year we spent a lot of time developing what we call the Clairemont Way. The Clairemont Way is a series of statements of beliefs around the way that we do the work that we do. And one of those statements you can read right here on the screen. It says that we believe that all learning happens within the context of trusting relationships. And in fact, we recognize that trust is the most basic quality at the heart of every relationship, and understand that our work is going to happen in those relationships. So as the principal of a linked learning demonstration site, we often have educators and administrators and policymakers coming to our campus to learn from the programs that we have on our site, and just kind of pick our brains about the exciting and innovative things that we're doing. And typically on these tours, it involves an opportunity for guests to hear from a panel of students. And I'll tell you, this is always my favorite part of our tours, because if you really listen to the students that talk about their experience at Clairemont, one of the things that they say each and every time is that it feels like family. And that's something that we're very protective of, making sure kids feel connected to something and feel a part of something. And that if they weren't there, their presence is missed, is something we take very seriously. So we spent a lot of time thinking about how we can ensure that students have meaningful connections to their teachers and peers throughout online learning. And so this year we're going to be taking a number of steps to help address that and really provide students an opportunity to stay connected. And so that first one is in terms of personal connection. The first thing that we're going to be doing is next week, you should expect a phone call from one of your child's teachers. So every student at Clairemont High School is going to receive a personal phone call from a teacher, welcoming them to the school year, asking them if they have any questions, or seeing if they can provide them with any support, and addressing anything that comes up. And the second we're going to be talking about a little bit later, specifically for our freshman students, because high school is such a big transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, and there are a lot of things that are very nuanced and new in terms of a high school experience. We've planned some freshman welcome orientation meetings for later on in the upcoming weeks, and we'll be providing schedules to students so that they can get a chance to meet their academy team and meet some of their teachers and hear from them about what to expect. And then the third thing that we plan to do, which is a little different than we had done last year, is there will be live instruction daily. And so what that means is each and every day your child will see all of the teachers that they have on their schedule to ensure that they can continue to spend time and develop relationships with them. The second thing I wanted to talk about in terms of helping students get connected is in terms of peer support and peer interaction. And so one of the things I'm going to have Liz talk about in just a little bit is a tool that we've been using, and one aspect of that tool that we're going to ask students to really develop is identifying learning partners that they can reach out to help them stay organized, to help them get connected, to help them potentially find study partners or people that they can rely on as peers in their academy and peers at the campus. So. And then finally, in terms of preparing the master schedule and thinking about the courses we wanted to offer, I know that there are a number of schools that were considering whether or not to offer ASB as a course. Typically, ASB spends much of their time planning pep rallies and thinking about school spirit. And I really think for us at Clairemont, that was a no-brainer. ASB at CHS is alive and well and will continue to be a course offering for students. I think, when we think about student body and student spirit, times like this is when ASB is going to be needed the most. And so this year, our ASB is really going to be working hard behind the scenes to provide students with a variety of ways to stay connected. So things like virtual pep rallies. We will still have our ASB clubs. So for example, when we were in brick and mortar site and had in-person learning, I know our anime club met with Ms. Boros for lunch. They will still have the opportunity to do that via Zoom, and we'll continue to provide students with supports in that way to get them connected. But ASB is going to be creative. I know they're thinking about virtual scavenger hunts or chieftain chow down, a virtual cooking competition, and a variety of other things that are wacky and fun, and I can't wait to see what they come up with. But we really want to spend a lot of time making sure your kids feel connected to the experience, and that they have every opportunity to feel like Clairemont still is their home and still feel like they're a part of the chieftain family. So in an effort to give you some predictability around the rest of this evening's presentation, we've really kind of scheduled it into two main sections. And the first item that I want to discuss is really how we as a school community, that's our students, our staff, and our families, are getting prepared for this exceptional school year. So these are all the things that we're going to be doing in terms of from now till August 31st when we launch our school year. And then the second portion of tonight's training is going to be really around how we as a school community can provide an exceptional school experience. And so that section is really going to be more information around the actual school year, what it will look like, student schedules, things of that nature. So to kick off, for preparing for an exceptional school year, I'm actually going to ask our Vice Principal, Ms. Sarah Thomas, to speak about student instructional materials.
So prior to the start of 2020-2021 school year, students will have the opportunity to retrieve any and all books, textbooks and or computers that they will need for their courses. Students who are still in need of a Chromebook may also pick it up at this time. We are asking that any returning students with materials still checked out from last year or the year prior to please turn them in at this time. If you are a 9th grade family and still have items to return to your former school, please bring those items as well and we can return those for you. When you arrive for your scheduled pickup, we ask for your child to please bring their school ID. A middle school ID will work too, as the barcode on the ID does not change. This will assist us in making sure the pickup process is quick and efficient. Please note that if you are unable to make the scheduled time as we have listed on this PowerPoint, we will have makeup dates on September 1st and September 3rd from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Students of all grade levels are welcome on either makeup day.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And I am seeing that some folks are putting some comments in the chat there, and we will answer most of those, but to kind of keep the flow of the presentation, we want to make sure that we don't stop for each of those. But what I will say is if students have an ID from a previous middle school or a previous high school in San Diego Unified, that ID will work. As far as ID photos for this year, until it's safe to do so, we're not going to be allowing students to come on campus to take those ID photos. So if you don't have an ID, as long as you come with your last name, the student or our librarian will be able to assist you with that. So next, what I'd like to do is ask our Academy Coordinator, Miss Liz Rush, to share a little bit about a special opportunity that we're preparing for our 9th graders to welcome them to Clairemont High School.
Hi again, everybody. So yeah, we're very excited, and we recognize that our freshmen are in a very unique situation. Normally we do so many things to try to get them to feel welcome on campus, and being that we're virtual, it has been on all of our minds on how to reach out and still make them feel special and make their introduction to high school as wonderful as possible. So one thing we are going to do is a new student orientation just for freshmen. This is for parents and students. We would love to see every single freshman and their parent on these Zooms. These are going to be Friday, August 28th, and you can see that they are delineated by academy. And during this time, we are going to have some specific information for freshmen and parents about how to be successful in high school and kind of what to look forward to. But even more importantly, we are going to have the academy teachers from each academy on those Zooms, and they are just going to spend some time telling you about themselves and getting to know you a little bit. We all know that personal connection to our teachers is super important. We're also going to be sharing a little bit about a wonderful new class that we are starting for freshmen this year, and a school-wide project that freshmen are going to be launching into regarding digital portfolios. So much more about that. Please mark your calendar for Friday, August 28th, and please note the time of your academy.
Great, thanks, Liz. So those last two events that we discussed are events that are occurring prior to the start of the first day of school. But San Diego Unified is hosting something that they're calling Welcome Week. And this is not just specific to Clairemont, this is across the entire district. And so as far as Welcome Week, as we begin the new school year, students and families will have the opportunity during Welcome Week, to participate in a series of engaging and participant-centered professional learning experiences that will really support students and families in preparing for the demands of online learning. So during San Diego Unified Schools Welcome Week, which is scheduled for Monday, August 31st through Friday, September 4th, students will have access to a variety of different modules and videos and activities to help them build skills for online learning, to develop social emotional skills, to engage in content standards, and really provide them an opportunity for voice and choice in terms of the modules that they select. So all of these student-centered activities will be distributed by the teachers here at Clairemont through their online learning platforms. And then during morning meetings, teachers can celebrate learning and allow students to share their experiences with their classmates in their classes. More information about our San Diego Unified's Welcome Week will be provided by our District Central Office Leadership Team. So be sure to keep checking your email for updates and information. Now, what this does mean, though, is that for the very first week of school, it's going to look a little different than subsequent weeks. And so CHS is going to continue to work with the central office leadership to ensure that the schedule that we have for our kids does not conflict with the schedule that the district has for Welcome Week. And we'll be sending out a specific schedule for that first week to students and families very soon. So now I want to shift gears a bit and begin to discuss the actual 2021 school year. I know that many of you had the opportunity to complete that survey and send a lot of questions and feedback. And apart from more information about when we will be returning to in-person learning, the majority of the questions that we had were really focused around student schedules and what the year is going to look like. So the following slides are really meant to provide clarity to some of those questions and help you as students and families better understand what the instructional program at Clairemont is going to look like, and both during online learning and when we eventually return to in-person instruction. So first I'm going to ask Vice Principal Mastrodemus to speak a little bit about our bell schedule.
Thanks, Ethan. So for our bell schedule, whether we are going to be in person or not, this is what the bell schedule will look like. So period 1 will begin at 8:50 a.m. and it'll go till 10:45. There'll be a 10-minute break. Period 2 will start at 10:55, go until 12:50. And then there'll be a break for lunch. And then you see that flex time there. And we'll get into a little bit more detail on what flex time includes. But with flex time, your student might or student may or may not be meeting with teachers. So that'll be where there'll be tutoring happening and there'll be office hours for teachers. And the first official day of school is Monday, August 31st. And the last day is Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. So this, the start time will be the same again for online learning and hopefully when we get back to brick and mortar. And similar to when we are in brick and mortar, we will be following all holidays. So the non-instructional days will be honored during online learning as well, starting with the first one, Labor Day, which is Monday, September 7th. And you'll see all the holidays there through the rest of the year. So we will be honoring those and there'll be no live instruction on those days.
Great, thank you, Lucia. So we know that online learning is a big adjustment for many of our students and for many of our families, and in fact for a lot of our staff as well. So as a result, Clairemont High School has taken a number of steps to provide students with supports to help ensure their success with online learning. And I've asked our Academy Coordinator, Miss Liz Rush, to speak to a few of those items now.
Yes, so one thing we recognized from our first go around with distance learning is just the absolute necessity of organization and everything we can do on our part to help our students get organized. we've put together a document that we are going to be giving every student. And let's go ahead and look at that document. We are calling it my personal distance learning planner. And so this is going to be a document that every teacher is going to push out the first week of school. We'll probably introduce it also again at the freshman orientation. But what we did is we simply put together all of the things that we believe kids need to think through so that they would go through. And as we scroll through, you can see we're going to be asking students to put thought into finding who their counselor is and getting their contact information. Another student in their grade level who's going to be their peer buddy. We're going to list where they can find all the district technical support for things like a laptop not working. And then you can see at the bottom of this first page, some really important things that we need to ask students to think through about. Where are they going to have a quiet learning time, and how often and when are they going to check their email? And really, these are things that we would hope students would remember to do, but we found through our first go around that these are things we just need to reinforce. We are also going to include on this planner, as we scroll down, some very detailed information where students can record their schedule, not only for the year, but also what their quarter for one quarter looks like. And then at the very bottom, the third page, we are giving them sort of a fill in the blank where they can have a one-stop shop for all of their teachers' information, their teachers' websites, email, Google links, and all that stuff, office hours. This year, San Diego Unified is asking all students to use either Google Classroom or Canvas, so it will be one platform or the other. We won't be juggling multiple platforms. But again, this organizer, we can go back to the PowerPoint. This organizer is just meant to help our students get ready. Another thing we are doing this year, and something that was actually in process before COVID, is school-wide digital portfolios. Now, we are piloting it this year with 9th grade, and our college and career technical education teachers in each academy are the ones who are going to be leading this work. We have actually been working on it all summer, and it's very exciting. This is going to be an opportunity for kids to create a digital presence. We are using a wonderful platform that's widely used in colleges called Portfolium. We have already contracted with them. And a lot of this work is going to live in a course called Personal Leadership Development, which all of our 9th graders will have in addition to some of their other electives. And these will be taught by our college and career tech ed teachers, who the kids will already know from their academy. And built into that class is just a repertoire of success skills and building toward their digital portfolio, helping them to be successful in high school, thinking through their identity and who they want to be as successful high school students. In addition, we are also able on our new schedule to offer additional sections of AVID. I think many of us are familiar with AVID, but AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and it's a wonderful program that really helps students get organized, do critical thinking, and get ready for college. And so we are able to offer even more sections of that than we have been able to in the past. So those are just a couple of the supports that we are hoping to provide our students, and especially our freshmen this year.
Great, thanks, Liz. So with that in mind, I want to shift now to start talking a bit about your child's instructional day and a little bit about how we structured courses throughout the year, and then get into what a typical day during online learning will look like. So in preparation for the 2020-2021 school year, we did some extensive research on successful online learning models and other programs that have had success with online learning. And we found that one of the most successful programs really had one thing in common, and that was that they reduced the number of courses that students were taking at a given time. So therefore, this year, CHS has made the decision to limit the number of courses students are taking at any given time to no more than 2 classes. And what this means is that students will take and complete 2 courses every 9 weeks or every quarter, as you can see up there in the blue boxes. So as a result of that, one of the things we find is that hopefully this can be a course load that's much more manageable for our students. But what this also means is that students will complete the same number of total courses, which is 8, in an academic school year that they would under any other format within our school, while we're providing a more manageable course load. So also during the 2020-2021 school year, that's hard to say, students at CHS will have access to the same catalog of courses that they did during our in-person learning. They will also have the ability to complete the same number of courses and earn the same number of credits. Upperclassmen actually will still also have access to all of the courses through UCSD and MESA that we had offered during in-person learning. And then in fact, many high schools in San Diego Unified that are currently implementing a 6-period day schedule. And what that means is that students at Clairemont have the ability to complete 2 more courses or 4 more credits per year than many of the students, excuse me, in our district attending the sites that have 6-period days. So over the course of 4 years at Clairemont, your child will have the ability to take up to 8 more courses and earn 16 more credits than a student at a traditional 6-period day high school. And that added benefit to students that they earn simply by attending Clairemont hasn't changed during online learning. Now, I know that for us, there are pros and cons to every plan, but what I can tell you is that the staff and I are very excited about the direction that we've taken with the structure of this year for a variety of reasons. And specifically the pros that we discussed and the reasons that we made some of these changes. And first and foremost was because we listened to our students and we listened to our families. And what our families told us and what our students told us was that the way that we did online learning last year felt very chaotic at times, and it felt very overwhelming. And that was feedback that we really took to heart and really said, you know, we have to listen to our community and respond and think about ways that we can make online learning more manageable. We know that things that are happening in the home for one student, you know, are magnified when you have 2 or 3 or 4 students in your home. They're managing 4 or 5 different Zoom schedules and 4 or 5 different sets of classes per student. And so we really wanted to respond to the feedback we received from our students and from our families. So. Second, we also wanted to create a more manageable workload. As I said before, with students taking no more than 2 courses at a time, this really will provide them an opportunity to really focus and go in depth on those 2 particular courses. And in fact, a lot of colleges and universities are making shifts to have a schedule similar to this. So for example, I know at National University, they do 1 course at a time during each month. And they've had tremendous success with this model. And we did a lot of research and talking to folks there to see, you know, why they made those decisions. And really that manageable workload was very appealing to us for both our students and our staff. We also wanted to create a more manageable Zoom schedule. I think for those of us who now in this new online COVID world are spending most of the day on Zoom, we know it's just not a healthy way to live your life. And it's not a healthy way for students as well. And so with this reduced workload, one of the things that's nice is instead of students attending 4 different Zoom meetings and managing 4 different Zoom calendars, we really are asking them to attend only 2 meetings with each teacher, which we feel like is a lot more manageable and a lot easier in terms of the strain that it puts on students. We also wanted to provide consistency for our students, some consistency and predictability. So one of the things we heard is sometimes as kids are shifting back and forth on, you know, Monday I have these 2 classes and Tuesday I have these 2 different classes, and then every other Friday I'm switching back and forth. For a lot of students, they let us know that they sometimes just miss meetings because they forgot which day it was or what class they had to attend. We also wanted to provide our students with an increased attention from their teachers. So one of the added benefits of having a teacher who's only teaching 2 courses at a time is instead of managing nearly 150 students over 4 classes, they really have about 70 students that they're managing. And so this means your child will get a lot more personal attention, a lot more individualized attention from their teacher. It also means that that teacher is spending less time lesson planning for 4 courses and really focusing on planning more quality lessons for the two courses that they're teaching. We also wanted to give greater opportunity for our struggling students to receive intervention. So like I said, with less courses that they're taking at a time and less courses that teachers are asked to manage, that means that they'll have more opportunities to meet during their office hours or during some of the asynchronous learning time with those students who are struggling. We wanted to continue to provide access to all of our UCSD extension and MESA courses, which we are able to do so under this model. And then we also thought to, you know, if this is the direction that some of our colleges and universities are taking in terms of how they structure learning, that a model, excuse me, that a model like this would better prepare them for what they would see during their time after Clairemont High School. So seen here on this screen is a sample 9th grade schedule. This is not the exact schedule your child will get, but it will give you an idea of what a year at a glance looks like for a 9th grade student. It gives you kind of an idea of the typical courses that a 9th grade student would take. And one decision that we did make in terms of where some of those courses fall is that all of our 9th grade students will be taking their English course and either their CCTE course or their personal leadership development course at the beginning of the school year. We really wanted our students to build relationships with their academy teachers and their academy teams right from the get-go. Other than that, what students will be taking during that 9th grade course is they'll be taking their biology course, their math course based on what math course they completed during 8th grade, their PE credits, and then an additional elective. As far as what CCTE stands for, I saw that in the chat there. CCTE stands for College and Career Technical Education. So when your child enters one of those 4 academies, it is specific to a particular career or technical skills. So for example, a CCTE course for freshmen in our business academy is going to be Business 100. And there are like courses in each of those academies that your child will take. So here's a typical 10th grade schedule and what you can expect for your 10th graders. During the 10th grade year, students again will be completing their CCTE course in their assigned academy, as well as the 10th grade English course. And for our online learning, we've scheduled all 10th graders to take those 2 classes during the 2nd quarter of the school year. And then the remainder of the year will be filled with the 10th grade courses that a student would complete during a normal school year at Clairemont High School. So this is their world history course, their chemistry course, an additional mathematics course or 2, the PE course, and then their any number of electives. Another question that came up that we wanted to address was around when will students receive their schedules? So as far as the process for students receiving schedules, excuse me. So Clairemont High School is going to be committing our master schedule this Friday, August 21st. And what that means is that students should have access to their schedules by no later than that Saturday, August 22nd. Students are going to be accessing their schedules in PowerSchool, and parents will be able to access those schedules as well through the PowerSchool parent portal. All the information that parents need on how to access that portal or create an account can be found on our website under the Parents tab by clicking on the What is PowerSchool option in the drop-down menu. But I've also placed a link to how you can set that parent portal account up on the bottom of this slide. And as a reminder, we'll be emailing this presentation out to families later this evening. So be sure that your child is able to log into PowerSchool and that you're able to access that parent portal prior to the start of the school year, as this is going to be one of the main ways that we keep you informed about how your child is doing. So unlike many schools in the district, at Clairemont High School, we hand schedule each and every one of our students' schedules. So in terms of how does a student request a schedule change, one of the things that I want to note first is that the way in which we build our schedules, while it's more labor intensive, we really do believe that it provides a more personal touch to your child's schedule. Our amazing counseling staff, I know you had a chance to meet Ms. Victorino, but Mr. Ramirez, who was unable to attend, is another counselor at Clairemont, and you'll get to hear from Ms. Victorino a little bit later. But they work tremendously hard to ensure that your child's schedule places them on track for a rigorous high school experience and a meaningful graduation. However, we do understand that the need for schedule changes may arise. So as a result, we will be following the schedule shown here to address schedule change requests. On Friday, August 21st, students and families will receive a reminder email from me letting them know that their schedules will be available soon. And that email will contain a link to a Google form that students will be able to fill out and indicate if they have an issue with their schedule or if they'd like to speak with their counselor. Once the counseling team has had a chance to review the student requests, they will be addressing them in the order laid out on your screen. So the counseling appointments for our rising 12th graders are going to be on Monday, August 21st to address any issues. For our rising 11th graders are going to be Tuesday, August 25th. For rising 10th graders on Wednesday, August 26th. And for our rising 9th graders, their appointments will be on Thursday, August 27th with makeup days on Friday, August 28th. The deadline for all of our schedule changes is going to be Friday, September 1st, September 4th. That's that first Friday of the school year. And however, we do hope to have all the scheduling issues addressed before then. Please note, though, that at this time, schedule changes will only be permitted for the following reasons. 1, if a student is mistakenly enrolled in a course that they've already taken and passed, or 2, if there's a hole in the student's schedule. All right, so another question that many students and families had was how the instructional day will be broken down. And I even saw in the chat that there were some questions about, 2-hour periods. It seems like a long time, and how are we going to break that down? So I kind of wanted to talk briefly about what the actual day is going to look like. And a student's day, if you want to think about it, can really be broken down into 3 distinct sections. The first 2 sections, which can be seen on this screen in the purple block, are their first and second period class. This is where the bulk of live instruction is going to take place, and each instructional period will really total about 115 minutes. And as you can see on the chart, each period will contain both live synchronous instruction, that's the purple block, as well as asynchronous or self-paced instruction. That's more of the pink or salmon colored block, if you will. After first and second period, students and staff will take a break for lunch, which will be from 12:55 to 1:25. And then from 1:30 to 3:30, we're having what we call flex time. So flex time, as noted by the green box, is still considered to be part of your child's instructional day. And your child may be asked to use this time to meet with their teachers in small groups for additional tutoring, support, or for general office hours. It really wasn't uncommon for students when we were in our brick and mortar site to meet with teachers after school to get support on assignments or access tutoring. And so we really wanted to make sure that that support still existed and was available to them. So students may also be asked to work on assignments or activities during that time that were discussed earlier in the day. All right. So in terms of key factors about the instructional day, there are some things that are different in terms of this year's online learning compared to last year's distance learning. So I just want to touch on those briefly. First is that both first and second period will begin with live instruction. And so what that means is that your child will see both teachers each and every single day. Also, attendance, instead of being taken at the end of the week like it was typically done last year, will be taken every single day at the beginning of each period. So we want to make sure that students have all the links they need to be present and ready for learning both periods every single day. Prior to the first day of the course, you'll also receive an email from your child's teacher. It will have a copy of the course syllabus, a Zoom link to their live instruction portion of the period, as well as a link to the teacher's Google Classroom or Canvas platform. One thing that is different this year is that all student work will be graded during online learning and will contribute to a student's final grade. I know last year there was a held harmless policy that was in effect. This year, all student work will be graded, and that is a shift for some of our students. So we need to make sure that that's something that they're aware of, and we'll be addressing that with them during that first week of school. And then finally, like I said before, we want to make sure that students know that just because flex time is not a specific period in their day, that they are expected to continue to be doing work during portions of that flex time. So really briefly, when we think about online learning, we have to really rethink the way that in which students are engaged in the process. Typically, we divide learning into 2 categories during online learning, and we refer to all of the instruction that's going to be happening in that dark purple box as our live or synchronous learning. This really could include a lot of different things like live webinars or instructional videos, video conferencing via Zoom or Google Meetings. It could be a conference call between students and teachers. And then on the other side of that coin is going to be our asynchronous learning time, which will happen either during that salmon colored block or in our flex time, if you will. And during this time, it's a time in which the type of learning is really dictated by your child in terms of the pace, what they're working on and how they're working on it. So for instance, if a teacher were to record a pre-recorded lesson, a student would have the ability to watch that lesson during a time of their choosing. And if it worked for them during that asynchronous time, or for whatever reason they wanted to watch it later that evening, they could choose to do so during that time. All right, so as far as how that instructional period is broken down, again, like somebody mentioned in the chat, it is a long time for students to be participating in live instruction, and we know that, and we don't think it's healthy. And so we really wanted to provide staff options for how they could structure each of those periods. So in terms of the actual class period, teachers do have the authority to make decisions about how they structure those periods, but I wanted to share with you the 2 options that we provided our staff at our staff meeting in terms of how they could think about organizing their classroom day. So the teacher is going to clarify the lesson topic at the initial aspect of their period. So students will, again, be live via Zoom at the beginning of each class. They'll have a check-in period with the teacher, very brief, usually 5 minutes. The teacher might give them a warm-up to work on while they're taking attendance, much like they would do when we were at our brick and mortar site. And then after that warm-up, the first of 2 lessons would begin. Teachers would provide live synchronous instruction, and then the students would have an opportunity to complete activities or assignments just like they would in the brick and mortar site, either in a whole class setting, or the teacher might use a Google Zoom, or excuse me, a Zoom feature to have students break out into smaller groups, just like we would do group work at a school site. Once the teachers determine that the students' practice portion of the lesson is complete, they would then bring the students back for a closing, again, just like they would in that brick and mortar site. And then we would move into an asynchronous learning portion, which would give students an opportunity to take a break, get a snack, use the restroom. And for those students who maybe want to stick around and have additional questions, they could do so as well. At which point in time, the second portion of that lesson would begin after the teacher and the students have had a chance to kind of take a break, stretch, just give their brain a break and their eyes a break. And then that second portion would follow a similar structure to the first portion, which would really allow teachers to focus on 2 lesson topics each period. A second option that we propose to staff that they could choose to implement is similar to the first, but with all of the asynchronous learning time coming entirely at the end of the period. And staff might choose a lesson structure like this if they felt like they needed a larger block of time to work, a larger block of uninterrupted time, maybe to discuss a topic or work on an assignment or an activity. But ultimately, teachers will be communicating with your students during that first week of school, the type of lesson structure that they plan to implement during online learning. As far as the flex time, and in terms of office hours that our staff will be providing, much like we did during distance learning last year, we will continue to offer optional office hours to students who may want additional support on assignments or classroom work. So to ensure that the office hours aren't scheduled at conflicting times, what we're going to do is adhere to the schedule seen on the screen. Essentially, what that means is that other than on Wednesdays, the first 30 minutes of flex time, teachers will be holding office hours for students who would like that additional help. And what we're hoping is that, that we can follow the schedule provided, which is on Monday and Thursdays, office hours for your child's first period class will be available, while on Tuesdays and Fridays, office hours for their second period class will be available. And teachers will discuss their office hours and provide students with Zoom links during that first week of school, and they'll also have an opportunity to put those on their personal learning planner. As far as the grading periods, like all schools in San Diego Unified, Clairemont High School will adhere to the following grade reporting calendar. At the end of each grade reporting period, it can be seen here, students and families will have the ability to check PowerSchool for all of their progress reports and final grade reports. And I will be sending out information to students, staff, and families prior to the end of each grading report with friendly reminders about when and how to access their grades. Along with the academic grades, students at Clairemont High School and all high schools in San Diego Unified will continue to earn citizenship grades. And I'm going to ask Vice Principal Thomas to talk a bit about how CHS will be addressing citizenship during online learning.
Hey folks, so after all of our trials and tribulations with our first run of distance learning last year, we realized we needed a more streamlined process for how a student earns their citizenship grade. So teachers have this rubric that you kind of see in front of you. We know it's small, but we will be sending you this. It will be in all of your teachers' rubrics on how the student, how your child can earn their citizenship grade. This rubric that we're trying to adopt has been adopted by a few other high schools in our district as well. And within this rubric, their citizenship will be earned based on 3 different criteria. Their respect and responsibilities for oneself, others, and the property of the school. So we're really hoping that this will be clear and concise for all students so they know how they can earn their citizenship grades.
All right, thank you, Sarah. One of the most important aspects I think about online learning is staying connected and staying informed. And so as we shared, we've done a lot of things to help kids really understand how they get connected to either Zoom office hours and get connected to their teacher. And they'll be filling out, like I said, their personal learning planner. And while CHS shares information in a variety of ways, things like our school week at a glance, we call that our swag. I send that out every Sunday afternoon, and it's got information about what's coming up at Clairemont High School. We have our e-notifications or our e-blasts, our school messenger. All of those platforms really require parents to have an accurate email on file in PowerSchool. So one of the things that we're asking all of our families to do is check that they have an accurate email on file in the parent portal account. So that way you can be sure to receive all of the information about Clairemont from Clairemont. Information on how you can access your parent portal account as well as a link to the parent portal was already discussed in previous slides. And so you'll have the ability to access that link. And like I said earlier, it can be accessed on our website under our Parents tab. For our students, Clairemont High School will be using their San Diego Unified Gmail account for all communication. This is something that is different. So for our returning 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders, this is an educational piece that we'll be working on during the first week of school and something that you can kind of help remind them. Each student in San Diego Unified is issued a Google account that is connected specifically to their student ID number. And in so doing, using this account, it will allow them to access their entire Google suite, Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, etc., and help us ensure that they're receiving up-to-date information and staying connected. I know that some students are more comfortable with this particular platform or this email than others, but we're going to be supporting them during that first week to get connected and work out all those kinks during Welcome Week. But please help your child begin to get into the habit of checking their email every single day. That is going to be a huge piece that will help them be successful. And I know it's a habit that not all students have. So if we can start to get that into their mindset, that would be great. So next I want to introduce Ms. Claudia Victorino. She's our head counselor, and she's going to be talking about the counseling department really quickly.
All right, so at Clairemont, we have 2 counselors. We got Christian Ramirez, and his caseload is going to be A through LE. And again, I'm Claudia Victorino, head counselor, and my caseload will be LE through Z. So the 3 domains that counselors support your children in is their academic development, college and career development, and their social and emotional development. Ways to get a hold of us. Email works great. All of our information will be posted on our school website. We both have Google Voice numbers, so you can always call us. There's also a link on our website in which you can request an appointment with the counselor. So those are some ways that you can get a hold of us. And then also the counselors have our own Google Classrooms in which we're going to be posting information for the students on anything that we set up during the school year, like SAT prep, ACT prep, just college readiness, Zoom workshops that we will offer throughout the year, any deadlines for seniors with college applications, scholarships, all that good stuff. We will post on our Google Classroom as well as mental health resources. And I think that's about it from counseling. So again, looking forward to working with all of you.
Great, thank you, Claudia. One last thing that we wanted to touch on that is, I know a huge part of the high school experience, you know, for me personally, I played football, soccer, and baseball in high school, and some of my fondest memories of high school were the memories I made out there in terms of with my fellow teammates. So I've asked our athletic director, Mr. Alfie Novak, to join us tonight and speak a little bit about athletics.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Ethan. I'll make this brief. I'm the athletic director at Clairemont High School. I'm also the athletic trainer at a high school. So essentially, if your son or daughter plays sports, they will see me every day. But the official start date that CIF has stated is going to be December 12th. They are not planning to eliminate any sports, which is great news. They're going to break the 2 seasons, they're going to break the 3 seasons into just 2 seasons. If you guys want, Mr. Williams will send this PowerPoint and you guys will be able to check out the athletic calendar. But we are going to try our hardest to make sure that we have all of our teams and that your sons and daughters have a great experience through athletics at Clairemont High School. That's it.
Great, thank you, Alfie. All right, finally, many families were wondering about what supports exist for students and families in terms of technology. So I wanted to touch on that briefly. The San Diego Unified IT Department has developed a number of learning modules and videos, including but not limited to things like how to care for your Chromebook, how to sign in and out, how to utilize the communication tools, tips and tricks for communicating with teachers, and then as well as a crash course in Power School. They also gave some modules around the introduction to the various online learning platforms that teachers will be using. And there's a lot more modules on our district's website. And much like last year, San Diego Unified will also be offering both in-person support centers where students or families can bring devices in need of repair, as well as an IT help desk and hotline that students and families can call to help them troubleshoot issues. So one of the things I want to clarify is Clairemont High School will be responsible for helping you obtain your Chromebook. But as far as the care for that Chromebook, if it breaks down or if there's any issues, that will be directly through the district's IT department. And one last thing, I want to encourage all the families to familiarize themselves with the district's online resource page, which is linked at the bottom of this slide. And again, as a reminder, I'll be sending this out and you'll have the ability to check that out. Alrighty, so that was a lot of talking and a lot of information. But at this point in time, that's really it for the prepared pieces that we have. I'm really hopeful that we answered a number of your questions, but if not, we want to take a moment to address them as best as we can this evening. So what I'm going to ask right now, in order to keep some structure to this portion and prevent us from unmuting and muting and maybe having people talk over one another, I'm going to ask that any students, staff, or parents that have questions, please type them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them as they're presented. Time permitting, we'll try to address all the questions, but if we're unable to do so or unable to get to your question, one of the things that we're asking families to do, you can just leave your questions in the chat and we'll take a record of it, and we'll get back to either you individually if it's a question that specifically pertains to you, or if it's something that pertains to the entire school community, we'll make sure to share that out with the entire community. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat and we will see how this goes. Alrighty, so first question I saw was, is something going to be sent out to freshmen about how to try out for sports? Mr. Novak, are you still on the line and can you speak to that?
Yes, thanks. So the coaches will, all of the coaches' information is on our website, chschieftains.com. On that website is also how you get cleared to play through CIF. Or for CIF, sorry, you need to be cleared to play. You need a physical. There's a few things online that you need to do, that you need to complete. But coaches will be reaching out to people that are interested. All those students, all they would have to do is reach out to the coaches, and all that info is on the CHS Chieftains.
Great. So one of the questions in the chat asks if coaches can begin to use the fields. Alfie, can you speak to that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, all of our fields are still closed throughout the entirety of Unified School District. All the high schools are closed. I know you guys might see that some middle schools are opening up their fields, and teams are allowed to play on that. That is not through Unified. That is a joint that's a joint effort through the city as well. So as of right now, all of Unified Schools athletic facilities are closed.
Great, thank you. So there was another question about, as an athletic director and as a school site, how are we going to handle if students want to play multiple sports? And I think, I know you and I had a chance to speak about that briefly, but maybe you could touch on that, Alfie.
So there's going to have to be a lot of cooperation between the coaches for the students that want to play multiple sports. I'm sure that because we are such a small school, most coaches will be more than willing to accommodate that. The main problem that I see with that, and Ethan, you and I spoke about this earlier, was that students are only allowed 18 hours. So not to get into the nitty-gritty of anything, but again, it'll just have to be coaches cooperating with each other and working cohesively.
Great. So there was another question about athletics that says if teams can't be on site, can coaches or parents get creative and set up clubs to allow kids to play off school grounds? So what I will say is, unless Alfie, you want to speak to that.
No, please answer.
So what I will say is, at this point in time, our school cannot sanction any events that would potentially put students at risk. We understand that kids talk, kids want to be around one another. In fact, I do know that some of our students have met to condition and to run and do things like that. And that ultimately is a decision that each of those students individually can make. But as far as opening up facilities or having any school-sponsored events, we won't be doing that until it's deemed safe to do so. There was a question about, are we set to talk about options of returning to campus and how classes will change at all? So one of the things I will say is, if and when we do return to campus, the schedule that we have provided most likely will continue to be adhered to in the same way, but in our brick and mortar site. So we don't have plans to, if and when we go back to school, make drastic changes to our master schedule, because what we found is that there will still be restrictions around the amount of time students can spend, or excuse me, the amount of travel that students can do on our campus. And so even though we would like to move back to having 4 courses at a time, one of the challenges with that being how much students are moving around on our campus. And so as far as when we will be returning, that question, again, like I said, is really a decision that we're going to leave up to our medical professionals and our experts in the district. And I also saw another comment kind of specifically about that there was something actually that came out in the news today, actually this morning, which said that it was safe to return to schools and that we could go back to brick and mortar site. And when would San Diego Unified be doing this? And believe me, that's a burning question for all of us. At this point in time, we have not heard anything from our district leadership in response to that particular announcement. But like I said earlier, as soon as that information is made available, I'll be sharing that with families.
Ethan, there was a kind of follow-up question to that from Roger.
Sure.
If you are, can you explain how, if we do return to brick and mortar, how our schedule will be either maintained or changed?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, Roger. So when we return to brick and mortar, the bell schedule, like Ms. Mastrodemus presented, will be the same bell schedule that we have. So school will continue to start, if we are in person, at 8:50. And the end of the educational day, the instructional day, will be 3:30. The healthy start time that our district proposed last year and that we were planning to implement in upcoming years will be in effect. But as far as the courses on a student's schedule, those will look the exact same.
And there was a follow-up question regarding that also from Chris about, does that mean when we go back to campus, that flex time in the afternoon, do students exit the campus during flex time?
Yeah, so what I would say is the original proposal that we saw as high school principals had students, there was a bus available to students to leave prior to that flex time. And so students could use that flex time if they so chose to do so. But the instructional day in terms of when students would be done on campus could be as early as that lunchtime. So will there be homework was another question that we saw. Yes, teachers will be assigning homework. Obviously that's up to the discretion of the teacher. But in speaking with a lot of teachers, the homework will be assigned for students. As far as who's the point of contact, if a teacher is unresponsive, you can always feel free to copy any one of the administrators on an email and we'd be happy to support you with that. So we as an admin team would be your direct point of contact. As far as a lot of questions in the chat I'm seeing about special education, and there are still some things that we're working out with that, but what I will say is all of our special ed teachers are returning and we are working to schedule students into those courses. So for those of our families who are returning and had either Mr. Wilson or Mr. Rubio or Mr. Gooden, those teachers are returning and we'll be scheduling those courses. As far as students who have, sorry, go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
I was just going to kind of jump in there because I've been writing down a few questions. So if I
Sure.
may. So a couple of questions have come up regarding IEPs and assessments. So unfortunately at this time, virtual assessments, and these are formal assessments, so school psychologists, speech and language, formal education assessments are still considered invalid when they are completed virtually. So that does give a slight roadblock for any students who are trying to get an initial IEP or a triennial full assessment. So that is a difficulty that the district is trying to work through at this time. Case managers, as long with teachers, they don't go back to campus or back to their calendar until next Wednesday. They will be doing lots of trainings and staff meetings, etc. But we are hoping that they get in touch with you each caseload by next week. As far as their classes and schedules, etc., when that case manager gets in touch with you, that's when they can then book time to give you all of that explanation. And those are the questions I've seen right now. So I can always chime back in as I'm reading through it later.
Great. There was a question that said, if my son has an IEP, will they hear from their case manager? And the answer to that is yes. We'll make sure that, especially if you're new to Clairemont, you have your child's case manager contact info so that you can begin to discuss with them. But yes, you'll be hearing directly from your child's case manager.
I have a question here from Chloe Fairchild. Who is the point of contact if a teacher or counselor is unresponsive? You can then forward any emails to your vice principal with the letter alpha, and we will help you take care of that.
Thank you. There was a question about Chromebooks as far as, do you need to request one? No, we have Chromebooks available. You would just come on your scheduled day and time to pick up that Chromebook. And if you have an ID, bring it, please. If not, we'll still work with you to do that. Another question about, what do I do if a student is sick or cannot attend a school day? So much like we did in years past, we would have parents call into our front desk and report that to our attendance clerk. And so actually we have interviews tomorrow to hire a new attendance clerk, a new school clerk that will be assisting with that. And we'll be providing all parents with that email. So all you would need to do is send an email to either your child's teacher or to that attendance clerk and let them know that your child was sick and will be attending the Zoom meeting or the live instruction portion of that lesson that day. As far as cheerleading, looks like there was a specific question about cheerleading. Mr. Novak, is cheerleading going to continue to be offered under the plan that CIF proposed?
Yes, CIF will, cheer is still going to happen. I was typing out an answer there, but I figured it would just be easier for me to say it. Again, all the paperwork for all of athletics can be emailed to me, and I'll make sure that you guys have my email address so you can email me everything directly. There's 3 important items that I need from you for your son or daughter to be cleared to play sports at Clairemont High School. I need a physical dated after June 1st. I need the athleticlearance.com process completed and the signature page signed by both you and the student. There is a tutorial on chschieftains.com that explains the process of how to do that. And then the last thing that I need is a photocopy of the current insurance card. So if I get those 3 things, then your son or daughter is cleared to play whatever sport it is that they would want to play. So whether that be cheer, whether that be golf, football, field hockey, anything that we offer.
Great. There was a question about students participating in athletics, and what I would say is I want every student, regardless of their ability or disability, to participate to the greatest extent possible. And so obviously that's a case-by-case basis depending on the ability levels of the students. We want to make sure kids are safe, but we can discuss that with your case manager about any particular athletics that your child or clubs that your child wants to participate in. There was a question from Chris about, does that mean that everyone leaves at 1:30 when we are back on campus? Chris, I don't know if we have an exact answer to that. I do know that the district is looking into when transportation and busing will be offered, and what they shared with principals is that if and when we return to in-person learning, that 12:30 would be the time that the buses are available. And so the assumption that I'm making is at that point in time, kids would leave campus. However, if there are restrictions that allow students to stay for the flex time portion of the day and meet with their teachers, then that's something that we'd honor, because we'd much rather have kids on campus meeting with teachers, staying engaged. But we'll have to wait to see, in terms of safety procedures, what is and is not allowed. How many websites are students going to enter? So I think we're talking about the learning management systems that our staff will be using. So San Diego Unified agreed with San Diego Education Association, as the teachers union, to limit high school teachers' choice around the platforms that they use to just 2 different platforms. So those platforms will either be Google Sites, or Google Classroom, or a platform called Canvas. And what I would say is most teachers last year used one or both of those sites. And so I think a lot of our kids are familiar with them. But for those students who aren't, we'll be spending a lot of time during that welcome week and during that first week of school helping kids understand the 2 different learning platforms and making sure they get connected. Alrighty. There's a question that asks, will buses be available if we return to in-person school? I do know that the transportation office is currently working out what transportation options will be available. What I've heard is that busing will be provided to some degree, but the specifics about busing have not been communicated to us. And again, as soon as they have been, we'll share those with families. There was a question about when is the freshman orientation. So the freshman orientation is going to be by academies, and that's going to be on Friday, August 28th. That's the Friday right before school. And there are specific times for each academy, and I'll be sending out this presentation to everyone, so you'll have that in your email inbox probably later this evening. There was a question about, is ASB a required course? ASB is not a required course. That's an elective that students can choose to participate in or not. And what UCSD courses are available. So Clairemont High School's vision ultimately is to offer UCSD extension courses. Those are courses that are taught by a UCSD college professor on our campus as a capstone experience for each of our 4 academies. We currently have 2 different course options for 2 of our academies. The first is a business management certification course, which is a combination of 3 business management courses, as well as an iOS programming course for the kids in IT. We had reached out to UCSD to begin conversation about offering a CAD certification for students in our engineering academy, as well as a health technician certification for kids in our health and medical sciences academy. Unfortunately, and we got some pretty sad news today, that the professor that was going to be teaching our CAD certification course just recently passed away. And so UCSD made the decision that at this point in time, it made sense for them and their staffing abilities to move forward just with our business certification and our iOS programming certification for our seniors that will be taking place primarily during the flex time, although the business certification will be one of 2 periods during the day for our seniors. There was a question, looks like, when do we bring our papers for sports? Mr. Novak, would you prefer that families email the paperwork to you, or should we hold on to that until we get closer to the school, the athletic calendar year?
Either is going to work. They can email me today, tomorrow, as long as everything is complete. I'll store it. They'll be cleared. If they want to wait until they can hand it to me in person, that's fine as well.
Alrighty, there was a question about if there will be somebody in the office if I call. Yeah, like I said before, we'll have somebody that you can email. Whether or not they're in the office or working from home, we have not discussed that yet, but there will be someone you can contact if your child is sick. There was a question about if we and when we return to in-person learning, will there be a hybrid model or a staying remote model? And it is my understanding that the district does want to continue to provide families with options. We understand that people have different health risks and different comfortability returning to school, to be quite honest. And so I do know that at the board meeting that happened this past June, one of the decisions prior to full closure of the school, the board had directed our school district to offer families both in-person and online options. And I believe it's their intention to continue to do that if we return to in-person learning. If you're an essential worker and not able to attend the Friday orientation meeting, one of the things that we want to do is record those meetings so that you'll at least have an opportunity to view them at a later date. Where do we get our children's school shirts? So actually, one of the things that's kind of an exciting project that our ASB is going to be working on this year is to create an online student store that will allow you to purchase any student shirts or anything of that nature through our online store. However, what I will say is our ASB and our ASB director will be reaching out to families with information about how you can purchase Clairemont swag. There was a question about purchasing an ASB card. So in the past, we've offered ASB cards where students can purchase upfront an ASB card, and this got them a discounted yearbook, a t-shirt package, and entrance into some dances. And so one of the things we've been discussing in terms of internally is if we're going to continue to offer that. We still have our meeting with our ASB director to make some decisions about that. Because a big part of that card was entrance into dances and things like that, entrance into athletic events. And so if we are going to offer that, it will be modified a bit, obviously, because some of those things won't be occurring, but we will be reaching out to families with information about that. I hope I didn't miss anything, but I think I'm down to the bottom of the list. Let's see, if your student is coming from a charter school that didn't provide a San Diego Unified student ID, how do we get one? Great question. So at this point in time, the only photos that we're able to schedule is through third-party vendors for our seniors for their senior portraits. So hopefully, if there are any parents of seniors in here, in the email that I sent out, there was a link at the bottom of that gave you information on how to schedule those senior portrait sessions. But as far as in-person photo sessions on our campus to create a photo ID, if your student doesn't have one, unfortunately at this point in time, we're not able to schedule those sessions until we're cleared to do so. So at this point, as far as getting their ID, if you have issues with that, you can reach out to our front office staff and we'll make sure we get you their ID number, but they won't be issued a in-person ID, or excuse me, a school ID until it's safe to return to school. Question about a yearbook. So one of the things that we had a chance to do was talk with our yearbook director, Mr. Gary Jimenez. He's an English teacher and a tennis coach. And I feel very strongly that regardless of the experience that kids have this year, I want them to have a way of keeping memories of things that happen. And so he and the yearbook staff, some of our student yearbook editors, feel really passionate and excited about thinking differently about how we're going to have our yearbook. And maybe students will submit favorite memories or things that happen during different Zoom meetings, or thank yous that they want to give to teachers, or photos of them doing work at home, or things of that nature that they want to be included in, maybe a memory book of some sort. It certainly will look different, but I do think in an effort to provide students with as rich of a high school experience as possible, we do want to continue to move forward to have some sort of yearbook or book that kids can take with them. What about senior activities for this coming year? That's something that ASB we will continue to discuss. Typically, a lot of our senior activities are things that happen toward the end of the year. And hopefully by then there are restrictions that have been lifted that will allow us to continue to do that. But ASB is going to begin to think outside the box, like I said earlier, and try to host various events for students, and seniors are definitely in that category. When do you think we will return to in-person learning? Boy, I tell you, that is the million-dollar question. And I promise you, as a parent and as someone who cares deeply about what we're doing, and as somebody who would much rather be sitting in a room with you rather than sitting on a Zoom meeting, gosh, I hope it's soon. But it would just be a guess at this point, to be quite honest. I do know that the district is putting a tremendous amount of time and effort behind the scenes right now into the safety precautions that we need to take. In fact, a lot of my principal colleagues and I are attending numerous meetings about planning for that return, but when it's going to happen would just be a guess at this point. Would a freshman student ID be the same as it was in 8th grade if she was in San Diego Unified last year? So yes, if your child was in San Diego Unified and they have a student ID, the barcode on that ID is associated with their specific student ID number. And that will still work when you're checking out items here at Clairemont High School. So that, for the purposes of checking items out and identifying their student ID number, that will suffice. Our Google Voice numbers on the website. So one of the things we've been working to do right now is to update Google Voice numbers for staff who choose to do so. We have a new site technician, his name's Steve Durham. We're excited to have him. And so he's going to be working with staff who want to have Google site numbers, so that way you can, or excuse me, Google Voice numbers, so that way you can reach out to families. And when those are available, yes, we will post them on our website. So as far as a specific orientation for 10th graders, this is going to be a lot of the orientation to the school. Otherwise, their orientation will really be during that first welcome week when they're reviewing training modules and getting to know the staff and getting to know their academy teams.
Hey, Ethan, there was a few questions maybe earlier about pacing. Can you speak of the pacing of what a 9-week class is? I think it was Teresa Ortiz had a few questions in there about how fast and what they should expect in terms of tests and frequency.
Yep. So I know that when we look at work being completed in one quarter, that is a shock to a lot of families. And one of the things I'll say is when you look at what's being done at other sites, students are still having, that are choosing a different model. So for example, there are a number of sites that are choosing a model in which students are taking 4 courses at a time. And like I said earlier, they're A-Bing those courses, meaning they're having, maybe their biology and their math class every Monday and Wednesday, and they're having their English class and their CCTE class every Tuesday, Thursday. And then every single Friday, they're rotating. And so those particular students are going to have the exact same number of instructional minutes with their teacher in terms of lessons being taught with their teacher as students at Clairemont on this particular model. It's simply how we structured it. So regardless of what site a student is at, they're going to have curriculum that's happening at a pace maybe a little quicker than they had originally anticipated. However, I think that's why we've really been talking with staff about structuring each day as though it were two separate lessons as opposed to just one lesson. So for our kids, yes, there will be a quickened pace, if you will, but I think hopefully the idea of having students focus on just 2 classes at a time will help mitigate that to some degree. And I think that there's a lot of research to back that up. As a parent of a sophomore and a senior, will the Zoom meeting tomorrow have all the same information as tonight? Yes, other than a couple pieces about our Mesa College courses and our UCSD extension courses, but we're going to be using pretty much the same PowerPoint. So if you came tonight, you're more than welcome to come tomorrow. We'd love to see your smiling face, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I understand that. As far as if there's somebody that you need to contact in the front office, yes, we will have a phone number that you can reach out to. But will that person be housed in the front office? Perla, I can't speak to that. We're going to allow staff the opportunity to choose what makes the most sense to them. So some of our staff have chosen to be on campus during online learning, and some have chosen to be from home, to work from home, and we're going to honor that. So as far as will they be on campus, I can't say specifically that they would, but they will be available via phone and via email. How did this new design change the course progression? So really the course progression didn't change in any way, shape, or form. The same 8 courses that your child would have taken had they been a freshman at Clairemont High School and we would have been all in-person learning and COVID had never happened, they will still be able to take those same 8 courses. They'll still be taking the same CCTE course at the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade level. We've just structured them a little differently during our school year. But as far as how the actual options for students changed, they did not. Piano requests. Oh, goodness gracious. Awesome. Well, I guess if there are no more questions, or if there are some, I would encourage you to type those in the chat. We save all those questions and we're going to go back and take a look at them. And if we didn't get around to your question, we promise we'll get back to you on that. I know there's a lot to process between now and August 31st, but I'll tell you, I'm really excited about where we are as a school community. I'm excited to get to know you and your kids even more. And communication is key. We will continue to provide you with updates via email, via our school website. So be sure to check in on that and reach out to any one of the members of the admin team and let us know how we can support you. And between now and August 31st, really just make sure you calendar some of these events. You're checking to make sure that you can get into your parent portal and your child can get into their PowerSchool account. And then at that point in time, wait to get a phone call and email from your kids' teachers next week, and we will hit the ground running. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you soon.
Bye. Thank you.